Hey everyone, welcome back to Poplar Preparedness. Things are about to get very real when it comes to the food shortage. Something just really important just happened, and that is that President of the United States, Joe Biden, has just admitted that food shortages are about to get real. And that is a huge statement. He was talking about it in context of that sanctions are not just going to hurt Russia. They're going to hurt Europeans and the United States, and it's going to cause food shortages around the world. Now, for 35% of you out there who have just heard what you need to hear, you now know there's a food shortage and you can go on with your life. Putin has also said that sanctions are going to create worldwide food shortages. So for another 10% of you, you can go ahead on your way now. But for the rest of us, let's look at facts and reason together as we explore what is actually going on here. But why that is so important that we have these mainstream characters talking about the food shortage is very simply this, is that has just opened up the gate for the food shortage discussion to go into the mainstream. And as it's going into mainstream, and it's going very calmly into mainstream, just casually mention, oh yeah, there's going to be food shortages and it's going to be real. Well, friends, food shortages are a problem. For most Americans who have several days worth of food, maybe a week's worth of food in their home, and that's it. This is a very, very big problem. So I know I'm preaching to the choir here. A lot of you have a lot more than a few days stored up of food in your home, and that's great. But let's look at, and you're asking, why is there a world map behind you? Well, let's talk about it. So we have bad harvests happening. But what we have that's really crucial and really important is that we have these new barriers coming up, right? So this Eastern European barrier has just come up. Russia and Ukraine, their wheat and their food supplies are staying where they are. That's important. We have a food barrier that has been erected down here in Argentina. Argentina has banned the export of soybeans. It is one of the world's largest exporters of soybeans. That's a problem. It also is one of the world's largest exporters of corn. So is Ukraine. And we have some of the major exporters of food around the world starting to erect barriers. So there may be theoretically enough food, but the problem is if that food never leaves certain countries, it's not going to get where it needs to be. So we gained so much efficiency in our system, world system, as we have implemented globalism. What we're seeing now is the breakdown of globalism, and those efficiency gains that we gained, we're going to actually be losing them. We're going to be becoming less efficient as a global economy because countries are starting to kind of do their own thing. They're not going to export anymore. Fertilizers from Belarus and Russia usually go to Brazil. But those fertilizers are not going to Brazil right now. Brazil desperately needs fertilizer to grow their crops, and they're not getting it. That's going to cause some significant inefficiencies. The Canadian rail workers are striking so that there's no fertilizer coming into the United States from Canada, which is a huge problem because the United States isn't getting any fertilizer from Russia. The United States is not getting any fertilizer from China right now because China has an export ban on fertilizer. And though they don't say it, they also de facto have an export ban on foodstuffs because they don't export period in the first place, they are continuing to buy up more and more, and they are grabbing what they can and holding it. Right now, what we're seeing hoarding happening, I know a lot of people, when they hear food shortages, they start talking about hoarding. And what they mean is they mean little grandma who went to the store and bought 10 cans of tuna, okay? What? She doesn't need any more than 2 cans of tuna. That's not a problem, okay? Little old grandmas buying up a little extra is not what's going to cause significant world problems. Major corporations buying up and holding warehouses full of stuff because they think because of inflation they can sell it later, that's a problem. But now we're on a bigger scale. We're not talking about companies inside the United States or Canada or Australia hoarding food. We're talking about countries hoarding food. Major countries. If we were to look at where all the corn is in the world right now, like all the corn that's been harvested that hasn't been eaten yet, 70% of it is sitting in Chinese warehouses. Let me say that again. 70% of the corn that has not yet been eaten, that exists in the world today, is sitting in Chinese warehouses. That's a large number. They've stockpiled the majority of the world's wheat, sitting in their stockpiles as well, and a very large amount of soybeans as well. Not quite over 50% though. So that's what we're looking at right now, is that we're seeing countries kind of barricading themselves. Now, we've put up some artificial walls. We have sanctions. Those walls are up, right? But then now we have these export bans on foodstuffs that are creating additional walls, additional barriers. But whenever there's a crisis, there is also opportunity, right? When walls go up in one place, they start creating bridges in another place. Exports of natural gas from Russia to China have increased significantly. Now they're limited by how much their pipelines can carry, but reports are that they have significantly increased their exports of natural gas into China. We don't have reports, but I would imagine that Russian exports and imports to Iran have also increased. This is important because not only that, but we also have India has increased imports of oil. So we have oil and coal coming from Russia, not going to Europe anymore, but now cheaply going to Asia. What we're creating is we are forcing the Asian market to start cooperating more. And we may be isolating Russia from the West, but when we start talking about half the world's population that we've driven them into the arms of, and the Indians are come wandering in and seeing a great bargain on oil and great bargain on other things, and they're starting to buy up weapons, they're starting to buy up oil, they're buying up other things as well. So India is not only flouting the sanctions, they are running against the sanctions. Some of the European countries are balking at sanctions too. Austria just came out and said that they are not going to cut any more energy. Their energy that they're getting from Russia, they're going to keep importing that. Brazil is hurting right now, and they are strongly talking about basically circumventing the sanctions as well to get fertilizer. And they're willing to do whatever it takes to get that fertilizer now. So what we're seeing is the relationships in the world are rebalancing. To say that Brazil would be pro-Russia before would be a stretch. But that's starting to change. India has always been kind of on the fence. India has always had a little bit too close of a relationship with Russia for the United States and other Western powers' liking. But they were slowly moving towards more NATO type folks because they really don't like China. China is allied with Pakistan, and India doesn't and gets into shooting wars and fights with both of those sides. So India has been looking for a strong partner, and historically they found that in Russia, but recently they've started to look to see if they can find that in the United States. But this whole scenario has actually reversed things, and they are moving towards the Asian bloc as it's forming. So when we start seeing all these barriers jumping up, we're going to see a lot more inefficiencies. We're going to see a lot more shortages in certain areas because it's less predictable of what's happening. And what we're going to see is the United States produces a lot more food than what it consumes. The United States is a major exporter of food, but there's this massive drought that's happening this year. So the question is the United States going to be able to really be able to export all that much this next year? And if things get tight, one of the things that you're going to be looking for is the United States may start putting export bans on some of their commodities, corn, soybeans. This will be huge. If that happens, what we're basically doing is we're just cutting off the rest of the world and just letting them fend for themselves. We've become so specialized that countries do not do things for themselves anymore. The United States doesn't really make computer chips anymore. It doesn't manufacture. We were just talking about the solar generators. Some people start asking whether they were made in the United States, and the simple fact is that lithium iron phosphate cells are not made in the United States. It's not like most of them are made overseas. It's just like there aren't any made in the United States really, except for very specific applications probably. And they probably get their raw resources shipped in from China. Solar panels are by and large all manufactured in China. That's where things are today. So what happens when people are starting to talking about sanctioning China? They've started sanctioning individuals in China, but they're talking about expanding sanctions in China against more and more companies. When that happens, it's not oil and natural gas that gets exported from China. It's all manufactured goods. Manufactured goods that the United States doesn't produce anymore. We're going to have to start rebuilding some factories and do so in a hurry. A lot of people are going to have to stop sitting on welfare and actually get back into doing jobs, building stuff, if that's the case, because we're going to have to get things into high gear. We don't have the machinery, we don't have the tooling, we don't have the know-how, we don't have the permit process that really allows for rapid construction of factories and retooling of factories. That's stuff that's going to have to absolutely change. We're looking at a world where these shortages, these food shortages, these manufacturing components shortages are about to get very, very real. I was just talking to, I was listening in on someone talking from a repair shop, an auto repair shop, and they were saying how parts are becoming so scarce. It's taking so long for them to get the parts in that they need to fix vehicles that it's really slowing down their timetable to turn around those vehicles, and it's really hurting the bottom line. We're having some serious implications of manufacturing right now, and food shortages are a little bit spotty right now, but those things are all about to increase. So what should you do about it? What can you do about it? The simple thing is you need to stockpile some food at home. You need to give yourself that buffer. If we go through some economic hard times, if the price of food continues to escalate, remember, as I said, how do we know where the price of food is going to land? it's going to keep rising until people stop buying food. If there's more people wanting to buy food than there is food to be bought, the price has to keep rising to the point that people stop buying food. How high does the price have to go before people stop buying food? It has to go out of reach of the poorest people in society. And that is a very scary thing if you just heard what I just said. The price has to go up high enough that the lower portions of society can no longer afford food. Now, in a global sense, if things stay where we're continuing to export and import everything, where's that going to affect people? Where is that going to affect people? It's going to affect people right here. Africa. The Americas. Poorer sections of Americas. And bigly over in India, over in China, over in the Southeast Asia area. People are going to go hungry if free trade continues. And if you think that these governments are going to stand for that, you have another thing coming. These countries are going to start putting export bans on food so fast it'll make your head spin. And they're going to start subsidizing food because they have to. And they're going to buy up food from outside wherever they can get it, because if they don't feed their people, they're going to have a revolution on their hands. And those countries are going to pay for food. They're going to pay higher than you think they will because they have to stabilize their country. And we are not going to be immune to that. The United States has often been far too foolish in being so open as it is. We may export far too much food and start to regret it not too much later. We may harvest a whole bunch of food, but if we export it all, we may find empty shelves in the United States. And that goes for any other country, like Australia, Canada, UK, European Union. We have to be careful about what's going on here. And if you think that your government has your best interests at heart, I'm sorry, you need to wake up. Because the governments that you think are going to save you are not going to save you. You think that they have warehouses full of food? They don't. The United States doesn't have a strategic grain reserve anymore. They disbanded it because they're like, food's not really important. They're just going to rely on farmers and the corporations to do what's in the best interest of people. But here's the simple fact is that corporations are going to do what's best interest of their bottom line, and when people want to buy stuff for a high premium, they're going to sell it to them. And when you come later and you're like, I want it for the normal price, they're going to say, sorry, someone over here already bought it for a premium. And your stores are going to be out of luck. That's why we're seeing problems, I believe, predominantly with lower discount stores like Walmart, because they negotiate such a low price that they're willing to pay for the food. When the manufacturer, when the producer of the food can either sell it for a premium to someone else or short, Walmart, they're going to short Walmart because they can make more money selling it to somebody else. And that's what we're seeing. That's what we're starting to see. But when this stops being corporations playing games and starts becoming countries playing games, things are going to get real. Just like President Joe Biden just said. You mark my words. Stock up, folks. Stock up for you and for anyone you care about, because things are about to get real. God bless you. I will see you again here tomorrow.